Hello and welcome to episode 68 of the Midlife Pilot Podcast, where we talk all things flying and aviation in midlife. My name's Ben. I am a private pilot with a commercial rating. I fly a Cessna 182 here in the metropolitan Atlanta area. We call our plane the Beast. Joining me tonight, as per usual, we have my friend, Mr. Brian Siskind, who is a private pilot living in Nashville, which is the home of the Bachelorette Super Charlie. Flies a plane he named Lucy, which is a Cherokee 180. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing great, man. And by the way, to set the record straight, I did not name the plane. It was sort of an inherited, passed along thing.
Did not do that.
But I found it perfectly fitting for a Cherokee with a red top. But anyway, yeah, how you doing?
Does not need any new names then. We're doing good. Also joining us from the West Coast and referred to in the chat as the Best Coast, we have Ted, our sport pilot, living in Portland, flying flight design Charlie Tango Lima Sierra, as I've heard on his videos say multiple times. We all call it the egg. How you doing, Ted?
Hey, I'm doing well. And it's Foxtrot Delta Charlie Sierra.
Oh,
wait, Foxtrot Delta Charlie Tango. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
It's flight design CT. So lots of confusion on that. Hear that a lot if you're with me in the plane. Hear a lot of, what is that? I've never heard that before.
Your most recent video, the controller thought you said pipeline survey.
Pipeline or flight design pipeline or flight design is life flight. And that's the second time that I've heard life flight. So
how bad would it be, Ted, if you just when they say, did you say life flight? Just go, yeah. I mean, yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
I think after it happens the 1,000th time, he's going to go, yes, life flight. So annoyed.
Yes. Yeah.
No, so I was wondering about that though, Ted. Is it something where, is this happening because at first when you call up for flight following, you're saying the type as a flight design?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's what they hear. They've never heard that term before.
Okay.
So could call up. I've called up with November a lot more lately. Could also call up with Light Sport, which they might recognize more. So lots of theories on how to make it better.
Well, I was just curious too. So then when you give them the acronym for it or whatever, the phonetic alphabet version, are they able to reconcile? Do they have like a table of that they reconcile that against? I mean, they're not going to take time to Google it, right? So how does that really help them other than just maybe, I guess, to clarify, it's not what you think it is. Here's the acronym for what it is that you still don't know, but it's not that.
I know that it's in the computer, that they can type that in and something comes up. And we verified that with friends of ours who would know.
Gotcha.
And for the record, the folks on OB have gone on record saying it almost doesn't matter. I heard one radio call where the guy said, is the spinny thing on top or is the spinny thing on the nose? Because that's all he really wanted to know.
That was in the New York VFR corridor.
Yeah.
And because the guy was used to dealing with helicopters. But I've been told by them, don't call myself a Cessna 150, which is what I'm always tempted to do because it looks like it's the same speed as it. Nobody would know from the air.
Well, let's go over a few housekeeping issues. We've got a lot to cover tonight, and I think we should just get right to it. What do y'all think?
Are they issues or are they...
issues. Things to talk about. Well, I guess they could be issues. I guess it depends on your perspective.
We have issues.
We broadcast live on YouTube, usually on Tuesdays nights, but somebody in the group, me, had a conflict tomorrow night, so we're doing it tonight. But we're broadcast at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can find us at youtube.com/@midlifepilot. We have a very active live chat tonight, and we'd love it if you could join us in the live chat.
By the way, I'm just going to cut in here and say it's YouTube. It's at Midlife Pilot Podcast. Otherwise, you'll go to our friend and OG Midlife Pilots page, which is totally fine too.
Thanks for that correction. I did not.
But, the website has it all.
The audio podcast is available at iTunes, Spotify, wherever you find podcasts are found. So we would really appreciate it if you would subscribe or follow, depending on the player that you use. And we'd really like a 5-star review. We've got one that we're going to be reading in a little bit. And again, I'm not above bribing for it. We'll try to get something in the mail to this reviewer. We love getting feedback and suggestions. Email us at midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com. All of our links, podcast, Patreon, contact information, you can find it at midlifepilotpodcast.com. That's kind of our centralized location of where you can find everything. Did I leave anything out?
No, but I mean, it's a pretty cool website. You should go and check it out. And we actually have a button you can press there and it'll take you to a thing where you can pretty easily leave us a voice message if you don't feel like typing. So,
oh, yeah. Also on that website, we have updated information about the fly-in in Nashville, the Midlife Pilot fly-in. As we had mentioned before, we had this beautiful complex rented out. We called it the Midlife Pilot Compound. It was going to be awesome. And as most things go, plans changed. The owner of the building decided to sell it, so they canceled our reservation, which I think is for the better because now everybody that's coming into the fly-in is going to be at one place, and that's going to be at the hotel. We do have a block of rooms that we've reserved. And we still have, I believe the number was 7 rooms available. 6
left.
6 left. So if you go to midlifepilotpodcast.com and you'll find a link with all the information about the fly-in, the different activities, places that we can go to. But there's a link to the hotel. There's also a number that you can call to make the reservation. But we're really excited about it. We've also updated our survey form, and we're asking everybody who has an interest in coming or is coming, or even if you're not coming, go fill it out. Let us know for sure. We really would need to get a pretty good, accurate head count of how many people are coming, just so we can prepare for different things.
Yeah. And one detail I just want to add is that the link that's on the event website. So here's the path. You're going to go to midlifepilotpodcast.com and you're going to see a big button for the fly-in. You're going to click on that and it's going to take you to a separate kind of web page that we built just for the event. And on that web page, there will be a link then that you can use to register to get your room, one of these last 6 rooms. When you do that, that link is coded in the sense that it'll already be assigned to the block with the discount applied, or whatever it is. So anyway, I'm not sure I'm not sure of the specifics of the numbers, but basically, I just want people to understand that the block associated to the podcast event is directly brought along with you.
And if you can't find that path, you can send us an email, you can hit us up on Discord, or you can look down in the show notes, the doobly-doo, and I'll make sure that there's a link in there.
And Ted's personal cell. Hold on. It is.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, you could see we don't have a specific itinerary for everybody to follow, but we've listed 3 or 4 different airports to go and visit. And, when we get everybody assembles on Friday night, we'll kind of build a little more concrete plan maybe.
I think we built it in the same spirit in the same way that we've been talking about flight planning, right? You never have to go. The more that we committed to a concrete plan, the more we're going to be subject to pressure to do it, et cetera, right? But in the case of how we set it up, we kind of have different things. It's like, if the weather happens to be better going south on that day, then I bet a lot of people will opt for going to Tullahoma and going to the Beechcraft Heritage Museum and whatever that particular outing is. Whereas if it's pretty bad down south, but it's looking fantastic to the west, then I imagine a whole bunch of us are going to be going to Sykeston to go to Lambert's and have bread rolls thrown at us and enjoy all of the festivities in the small town of Sikeston, Missouri. So ultimately, everything is kind of set up to give us flexibility and also to give people options. So if it's glorious weather everywhere, which it will never be because we're planning something, so it can't be, the universe doesn't work that way. But say that the weather's great, we're also not all stacked up, right? If we have a bunch of planes going to a bunch of different places, some of these places have more parking than others, or, or more remote than others, or various things. And it kind of gives us the ability to, choose your own adventure, I guess is the way we kind of talked about it. So I know that some people have been, what's the plan? What are we all doing? And it's like, well, I mean, it could be any number of things. It also could be that the weather, and I think, Ben, you are in the back of your mind, I think you want the weather to be terrible so that we can just hang out the whole time.
So we've what is this, our fourth fly-in that we've done? And I think everybody that's attended those agree that while the flying is pretty fun, it's the hangs that it's where it's really at.
Yeah.
And being able to spend more time with people that we've seen on the Discord server, or seeing the chat on YouTube, or wherever it may have been. I mean, that's me. I like to get to know people and, really dive a little deeper into how they got to where they are, and just learn a little bit more about them.
Yeah. And Ted, can you provide any, I don't know, guidance or assurances for those that are introverted?
I was just thinking that. I was going to step in and say something here. Yeah. There are those of us who can do well in crowds of 2 and not crowds of 3 or 4 or 100. And it'll be all right. We'll find corners to hide and, have small conversations and whatever. We've done it in the past and it works. So, there's no events that you'll be marked down for not attending on your, absence sheet. So yeah, it's all good.
So we don't have punch cards?
No punch cards. Yeah.
We give you a card, and if you get all the boxes stamped, then you're in the drawing to win a prize. You know how they used to do in trade shows. That's
how you have put together an event that is not particularly exciting when you're trying to incentivize people through some dog training exercise to go check it out, but
go talk to the vendors. You stamp for every vendor you talk to. Do I have to talk to the vendors? Yeah.
Mandatory fun, somebody said here. Yeah.
Yes, that's BitShifter.
Yeah. So it should be a good time, but please go fill out that survey. It's really important that we do get some accurate numbers. And with that, Brian, do you want to get to the review next?
Well, we got to do our Patreon bit here.
Oh, Patreon. That's right. Patreon.com/@midlifepilot podcast. We have multiple different levels. Take out the @ sign.
Go to our website.
Just go to our website. That's the whole answer. Right.
Go to our website.
Everything. Yeah.
I don't know if you can see it in my title, but it's 32 days without flying, and you can see how it's affecting my memory and
makes
my
Jack a dull
overall.
boy. Yeah.
Just a little bit off right now.
Yes,
but there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that's getting me through it. So,
all right. Well, we'll hammer through this quick, but basically, we got a couple, or we got three new patrons.
Three new patrons.
Yep.
All right.
So at the Hershey Bar level, we've got 3 new people. We've got Rob K, we've got Cowboy Pilot, and we've got Romeo Victor.
Right on.
Really appreciate you joining us. It's
absolutely.
Yeah.
So with that, what regrets do we have, or REGERTS actually?
That's right.
What regrets do we have? Our topic tonight, 5 things we'd have done different. How would we do things different? And we got a lot of feedback on this, and I think I would rather just kind of move into the feedback and let's chat about this, because I think there's a recurring theme.
Oh yeah,
with a lot of it, and it's I'm right along with it. There's a lot in here. I might be able to add a few others, but I'll start it off, and then maybe we'll just go around the horn, and we can each read one and go around and maybe comment on a little bit. What do you think?
Sounds great.
Ted, you want to start us off with Adamar's?
Sure. Yeah. Adamar gave us three things that I noted. The first is wishes he would have read the ACS. Totally. Read the ACS, wear that book out. Wish he would have learned more about avionics, and then wish he would have journaled his flights. It's hard to remember what you've done on the flights. And I think those are all valid. Ben and I have started our aviation journals. We'll put a link to Brian's journal in the doobly-doo, but it's a way to write down all the details that maybe not everyone cares about, but are really important to you. So yeah,
I'm really glad that he brought that up, because the benefits of writing down my thoughts after a flight in that journal instead of the little tiny space in your logbook, it causes my brain to start switching into a different gear, and I start remembering a lot more different things. Some of it's not so good, some of it's fantastic, but I really like that aspect. I didn't expect that when I started doing this journaling. So once again, thank you, Brian, for coming up with that product. But it's a good call, Adamar, as far as the regrets go.
Well, by the way, to be honest, I never really thought of it to be of such a kind of not clinical, but I don't know, a more performance-oriented log. I didn't necessarily think of it that way, but it works for all things. But it's ultimately a memory logbook, and so whatever you want to remember. But I kind of primarily came about it with the idea of, instead of writing in your logbook, flew to lunch with Bob or whatever, maybe you have a book that you can take ephemeral things from your trip and tape them in there and draw things and have them write something, or you can write down what your memories were of what you guys did, or just a way to sort of elaborate on the personal experience aspect of it. But I understand that it's certainly helpful for what just happened there.
Yeah. Again, and I feel like I haven't figured out all of the benefits from doing it. Like you say, get others involved and what have you. But I do highly recommend that. I also think, had I started this when I was first learning how to fly in 2017, I'd probably be in my third book now, which that really does drive a fair amount of regret. I've gone through my logbook and looked at my entries, but I only remember, 1 or 2 points from it. So good call. You want to take Josh Max, Brian?
Sure.
Number 2.
Josh MC left us with these thoughts. He said, I love this first one. Purchase less from Sporties. Stuff went unused, which, by the way, I think that might be a little bit of a midlife tendency, in the sense that it's like we're pretty preemptive or pretty quick to outfit ourselves, in this. I don't know if it's like a prepper thing, or I don't know what it is.
Accessorize.
Yeah, accessorize, but you just don't know. You just get the very, very least amount of things and get what you need as you go. There's nothing that you need that you're going to have to wait 6 weeks to get. Which, by the way, definitely don't buy anything from Sporties till you've done your medical, I suppose. But anyway, he said purchase less from Sporties, bring wife along. And I'm assuming that means like in the training context. I definitely did that a couple times, and with mixed results. One time was it was a very hot day, and I think on my second day of being in the pattern. So we never got high enough for things to cool off, and let's just say it was a little bumpy. And but ultimately, I think that's a huge thing, to try to assimilate early the people that you're wanting to share aviation with and fly with, because the more that they can kind of be involved in the process, the better. Volunteer flights. So I suppose that just means maybe earlier on being steered towards angel flights or any number of other volunteer flights. That's totally good. And getting involved in maintenance. We were just talking about this before. I was asking you, Ben, if you'd done an owner-assisted annual, and I understand that there's a lot of mechanics. One of the mechanics that I've dealt with definitely doesn't want to have owner-assisted annuals going on. But our principal sort of guy is, he's kind of semi-retired, and he probably feels he's just been obliged to be very helpful and educational to us. And I think he takes a lot of joy from educating us. And so we're in this lucky position to be able to do annuals that are owner assisted with him and help him with other things. And so that's been a huge thing to be brought into the maintenance fold. And that's tough when you're not, especially if you don't own. How do you get that experience?
Exactly.
Maybe that's something we can talk about more. But I think that that's a great point. So, But yeah, on to the next.
From Nabil. Nabil comments that he should have started flying sooner. And I think that's probably the most midlife comment maybe ever on this podcast. We all probably wish we started flying sooner, but I absolutely agree with it. And waited until cash to pay for it all up front. So
yeah, what Nabil said was that he made sure he had all the cash before he began his training. And so even though that's generally a thing that we might recommend to people, that they make sure they can afford to fly, the counterpoint to that is don't put it off forever.
Something will always come up, and it's a very hard target to reach, because sometimes that all-in cash number just keeps going higher and higher. Well, I need this and I need this and I need this.
I'm sitting here thinking, here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, while I can appreciate that was the suggestion, maybe it's also the worst idea ever, right? Because, I don't mean that, but I appreciate the input. But I was just visualizing, imagine if you estimated, I don't know, 13,000 in cash or whatever it would be, and you actually have it in cash, just stacked up
under your mattress,
right?
Yeah.
And then every time you go to fly, and every lesson, you have to pull actual cash out and start throwing 100s at people. I wonder how many people less would finish their training if they could feel the tangible bleed and the hemorrhaging that's happening. Whereas there's a little bit of a disconnected kind of out of sight, out of mind when you just are like kind of sending it. But that's have the money to do it and not put yourself in a situation where you're going to get cut off halfway through, for sure.
Right.
Well, Nabil was saying the opposite of that, though, which was to get started sooner than that.
Yeah.
But I wrote down two things from Alyssa. It's always good to hear from Alyssa. The first was, immediately after her discovery flight, she should have scheduled her medical. Should have started that process immediately. Man, we had a podcast about that. I'll have to make sure we cover that. But that was definitely a recommendation: is start your medical. Know what might be the speed bumps on your medical. Don't be one of those people, those kind of sad looking people at the airport that can't solo because they don't have a medical yet.
So I was one of those, and there's someone else in the Discord server too that's going through it now. The FAA medical division is in absolutely no hurry, and look, they're swamped. I'm sure they've got probably thousands and thousands that they have to go through. But I should have soloed in June of 2017, and I soloed in August of 2017.
Oh man!
And you have to stay current. And so you have to get up and check as many boxes as you can with your dual instruction. But when it's time to solo, no medical, it can drain the bank.
I was going to say that ties into the sort of the budgetary piece too, because it's like, if you have a situation like that, you could be, I'm not going to call it a stupid tax, but it's, we're all doing the best we can here, but yeah, you don't want to be in a situation where you're having to float 2 months of instruction to not lose it all while you're waiting for a medical or whatever. And people have to go longer than that. That's actually kind of nice that you only had 2 months, right? I mean, it could have been a lot longer. So yeah.
Well, Biff echoes that as well. He said I was that guy too. So I think the medical headache is definitely a common thing. The other thing that Alyssa said is she wishes that she had gotten actual quotes on avionics upgrades before buying their plane. If you're planning on doing work on the plane, when you buy it, you don't have to factor that in. And if you're buying it and it's good to go, that's fine. But yeah.
I think there's enough content on YouTube now where people have done avionic upgrades and they share the costs. So if you find an airplane that you're going to buy and it needs avionics work, there is a lot of content out there that you can go and find. And then also you get an idea of all the different manufacturers and all the different setups. And then you can go find an avionics shop and then really find out. But I think that's great advice. That is something that if for whatever reason we have to trade up on the beast, then I've kind of already got in my head a game plan of what I'd like to see done either to the beast or to the next plane.
Can I tell you that I still want, we have a spot that's perfect for it too. I still want to just put like an old Alpine cassette deck in there and some 6x9s. Anyway, that'd be the cheapest thing you could possibly do in an airplane.
I wonder if you would need to get a STC for that.
Oh yeah.
Because
It's gotta be. Yeah.
I've seen old, I remember when we were all at the first flying, we were in Outer Banks.
Yep.
And we were at Currituck, and I don't know if you remember, but there was I believe it was a 195.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. I mean, just like one of the most beautiful planes I've ever seen in my life.
Work of art.
Yeah. And inside that, they had a cassette deck and some speakers. And I just thought, this is what I'm talking about. For when you're just kind of hanging out. But anyway, all right.
Okay. Brian, you're up with Chris C.
Chris C says, should have waited until sorry, I'm misreading the perspective from the note taking that you've done here, Ted, has me all kinds of.
It works in my brain. Yeah.
I see. So I shouldn't read really what I'm seeing. I should just use it as a launching point to then say things. Okay. Got it. Should have waited. So Chris is saying I should have waited basically until I was ready for my check ride. That's essentially what he's saying, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Chris
versus who?
He was relying on his CFI, who is a good friend of his.
Yeah.
And so he used what his CFI said of when he was ready. And that's good because his CFI is seeing a lot more people flying, but that doesn't mean that Chris was ready.
So, okay.
So he's saying that he wasn't ready for the check ride, but his CFI was telling him that he was. And if he had to do it over again, he would wait until he was ready instead of his CFI telling him he was ready.
That's a really interesting point because, Chris is a very prudent and thoughtful and intelligent person. All that being said, I feel like who tell me one person that's ever done a check ride where they just thought, I am 100% confident that I am ready now. And that just, and honestly, if you ever felt that way at that stage, I would have questions. How do you know? And you have to, like everybody always says, and it's true, your CFI is going to know when you're ready. And I think that's 93.6% true. And so you have to assume that you're one of those people. But but look, at the same time, you don't have to do it, I suppose, right? If you just feel like it's not just a blanket kind of anxiety that I feel. It's actually based in these things. And I feel like that's something you can do with your CFI to sort of shake that out. But that's an interesting point. I've never heard anybody say that before. So that's really interesting.
Yep.
Should have done more on his own versus using CFI to own the process. Like this is about owning the process. So yeah, especially I think if you're using a CFI that you're kind of friendly with and that and maybe they're kind of helping you in that way, it's harder than to, I can imagine it can kind of feel like you're just kind of going to somebody's house for dinner and then consequently you're learning how to cook or something, as opposed to like I'm going to flight school ABC and where's my curriculum and how much are you charging me? And I think that might be a symptom of like a friendly deal that maybe that people can take that as a takeaway for, you should own the process. We've talked about this, own the process. There's a lot of people that have been taken for rides. And I'm not saying this is what his friend did. I'm just saying,
right.
Start recording flights sooner. I understand it's a little bit controversial. Some people had different points of view about it, but I think that we're all of the mindset here that the more information you have, the better, and don't let it be a distraction. Do it safely. We have a whole episode about that as well. And I still, just the other day, I went back to one of my lessons. I started recording lesson 1 because I knew that I was not going to there was going to be my experience and then some sort of reality of what it actually was. And I wanted that fact from fiction sorted out pretty quickly. And I didn't want to rely on my brain in that process when you're a little bit overwhelmed. So yeah, that's great. Yep. For debriefing lessons and spend time at smaller airstrips. So yeah, Chris, I think it's like a 10,000 foot runway or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine
wide.
Yeah. I can't imagine having a more distorted initial sight picture for, it's really hard to learn how to find airports just to visually start to pick them out. And I can't imagine being put at more of a deficit than starting out on a space shuttle runway and then having to work your way back.
Right.
So anyway, yeah, I mean, and I think that could go both ways, right? Like if you are a person at a very small, like Ted, like the place that you trained, right? It's sort of the opposite. And I can see how a person maybe in your position would say, man, I really wish I would have gone to more, I don't know, Deltas or Charlies or whatever.
That definitely comes up in some of these other comments.
Yep. And just as a quick follow-up, Chris is in our live chat, and he said, I felt pretty ready then, but in retrospect, I think I would have benefited from more CFI time. That's what he was trying to say. So,
Understood.
Yep,
and honestly,
we got it.
And honestly, that feeling should not end, right?
Right.
And he knows that. But thanks for clarifying that, Chris. And that's awesome.
So moving right along, another Patreon member, Cheapskate. He says he should have used his CFI more. Wishes he'd done dual cross country to somewhere busy, gotten out of the plane, learned how to call a fuel truck. And he comments, I still don't really know how to operate at a busy airport. And, that's, again, nothing in the curriculum, nothing in the ACS says this is how you fuel up your airplane or how you deal with a busy Delta. I remember in my training, our school actually did, it's not in the ACS, but they would definitely, as soon as you kind of got your pattern worked down, the next thing you did was fly into PDK because it's a pretty busy class Delta. Actually, it's very busy. Parallel runways, complicated taxi instructions. And if you're learning there, then you're well ahead of the game. But yeah, so that was, I definitely recommend that. I was fortunate to have that part of my training.
My counter argument is that should not be a required element in learning to fly because it's not something that people die doing. And
well, it's not in the
there's
ACS.
already enough, right? There's already enough stuff to learn. And,
right.
And so that's why I think that it shouldn't be in a curriculum. I do think that it's something that we all benefit from and learning how to tie down and learning all those things were new. And,
Yeah, and I think we've even talked about this on another episode as well, about just operations at unfamiliar airports, bigger airports, the nuances you don't get in training for how to navigate the customs. You don't, like, there's never a point in your training where your CFI goes, okay, I'm going to marshal you in and you're going to have to get familiar with these signals. And even though I'm waving my hand this way, it means go that way. Or I don't know, just, there's stuff you just have to figure out. And you just have to be an idiot about 7 times on all of those things. And then you figure it out. By the way, Chris C is clarifying also his runway is not 10,000. It is 12,000, which I still feel like there's got to be some way to leverage that to really expedite your training. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You get your night currency on one trip down the runway.
Do you I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, but do you ever really need to go around?
Yeah.
I mean, you got 12,000 feet to work with. If your approach is unstable, you could probably climb back up to about 1,000 and start all over again and still have enough room to land on it. So I don't know. That's I'm sure they practice go arounds. I'm just really teasing about that. But
can you imagine though, just getting used to that picture?
Yeah.
I mean,
know.
I can't. And then all of a sudden you're looking at these like little Wrigley spearmint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and this may not have been Chris, but I think it was Chris who talked about going into a small field fairly late in training. And it was a 3,500 foot field. 3,500 was a big field for me. So it's just funny that difference. Like when you start at 12,000, everything is short field after that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So Cheapskate learned in a Delta, as did some other people. But Adam V, his regret was that he started at, we'll call it a Charlie. He started at BNA, and he wasted a lot of time with that because he spent a lot of time taxing, spent a lot of time waiting to take off. And so he wishes that he'd trained it somewhere smaller where you could get your laps in a lot better. He also wishes, and this is something we don't talk about, he wishes that he trained at a school that was open on Sundays. It's not something you think about when you're going in for your discovery flight, right? Like, oh, do the instructors work on the weekends? Do they work in the evenings? It may be an 8 to 5 school. And that's a good thing we don't think about to ask.
It's a great call out. It's a great call out.
Yeah.
All
right.
Moving along, Brian, I believe you're next with our friend Mike Alpha Golf.
What were you about to say there, Ben? Mike Alka what?
Alcohol. Lack thereof.
Mike Alka Golf. We appreciate Mike Alka Golf.
Yes, we do.
Golf. Now you got me doing it. All right. Mike Alpha Golf. Thank you for this. Should have let his friends and family in on the process, which has also been covered in another one. Has kept them at arm's length because quote of being, quote, fear of being insufferable. Now, but wasn't there a note in there about also that changed over time and he found out that people were actually more interested?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why he wishes that he would have let them in earlier on the process. It turns out people did want to know.
Yeah, or that's maybe just how you know you're becoming a pilot because you've convinced yourself that other people are really interested in what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah. You learn to tune down those cues of people like walking away from you, and you're like, but wait, I got to tell you about why B&A is named that. Yeah.
No, but that's a great, I mean, we can't say enough about that. Bringing people into the fold. And when he talks about the process, he's not just specifically mentioning like we were before about bringing people on the flights as guests or whatever, but it's also, and it can kind of work both ways. I think that with my wife, it's been good and bad, right? I've studied so many accidents.
Yes.
So she knows a little bit too much about so many things that, can be going potentially wrong. But I think that that's better than, hiding all of that or trying to reshape it. And she's learned a lot with me through the process. And I can see how that's a huge thing. So yeah, good stuff.
Very cool. Got a few more to go through. All of these have been really great and we appreciate all the feedback. We have to mention our Patreon, our resident expert, CFII Nate B, who I believe is in the chat, responded. He started his pilot training at age 17. He didn't pursue it as a career and should have. The TLDR of it is the aviation industry was a roller coaster and my folks, his parents, didn't want that for me. And he gets it. And Ted also has some additional feedback, I guess, on this, according to our notes. But, there is, and I'm going to plug our friends at Opposing Bases. They did a whole episode on the hours that you keep as an air traffic controller and as a pilot. And that has some significant mental wear on, you're not home for vacations. You're not home for Christmas. You're not home for a lot of family events. And, there's a lot of people these days that if they don't have to put up with those type of hours, they're not going to.
Yeah, and Nate talked about that in his comment in Discord. And his dad is in the industry, and I can't remember his mom was, but definitely his dad flew, and so he may not be home on Christmas. That's normal.
That's the reality.
But I've got to say one thing that starting at 17 is what made me think of it. When we were all around that age, that's when the junior pilots were not making any money, right? This is famously when pilots were told not to wear their uniforms when they went to get food stamps, right? And so it's a little different now, where the money is one of the attractive parts of it. That was substantially under what you could live on in that era. So I think that's changed quite a bit.
Right.
You know.
I think so as well. Ted, you want to take?
Yeah, let me take Biff's. There's a lot of echoes in here. He said he should have started sooner. Yeah, we've heard that for sure. Wishes he'd spent more time at busy airports. It's really easy. People say that it's like if you learn at towered fields, you're afraid of untowered fields, and vice versa. I think there's some truth to that. CFIs are kind of the same way.
Right.
They're going to take you to similar fields, but there's nothing that stops you from telling your CFI, "Hey, take me into the Delta. Hey, take me into the Charlie." Probably not take me into the Bravo unless you're Alyssa, but definitely Charlies and Deltas you can get into and should when in your training.
For sure.
So if you're not used to that, please go do it. He wishes that he had taken more frequent lessons. I think he was at the once a week time frame, and that's definitely something that we hear is and recommend is make sure you take at least 2 lessons a week. And then he wishes he would have bought Maggie. And we're not talking about the Rod Stewart song. We're talking about Wendell Geek's plane, his 140, which is a beautiful plane that he sold to become a part owner in an IFR capable plane. But
so Biff wishes that he bought Wendell Geek's plane.
Yes.
Okay. I see. Now we've got Patreon members lamenting decisions in and around other Patreon members' activities. Okay, this is interesting.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived.
Yes.
Patreon members selling planes or trying to buy planes from each other. We know we've arrived.
We're inside the midlife universe now. Like we, yeah.
Well, yeah, I can totally see also. Yeah, the crock pot on low approach to getting your training. You'll still get there, but I mean, it's just, yeah, I think all of us agree. You kind of have to, you're going to save a lot of money and grief if you just go a little bit more full on. I'll go ahead and grab this last one unless you got something else.
No, go ahead.
So Cheryl, thanks for this. Pretty straight ahead. She wishes she took the written exam earlier and wished that she researched schools better. I can totally agree. I mean, I didn't wait too long with my written, but even doing it, I guess maybe at about the halfway point of my training. Let's see, I guess how did it go? I did because you do this, the pre-solo kind of in-house written kind of thing. That's not an FAA thing. It's just a flight school thing.
Right.
I did that first. So it must have been a little bit past half when I did that. And I do wish that I would have done it a little earlier, not just because I think that, I mean, on one hand, that knowledge would have probably helped me a little bit earlier on, but I think more so just it's inevitable that after you solo, everything kind of gets into a little bit of an overdrive. It's hard to even explain to people that haven't gone through this, and and people will even tell you this when you're training, like, hey man, just watch out, because as soon as you solo, things are going to start happening real fast. And you're like, yeah. I feel like I'm so far away from a check ride. It's ridiculous. And you probably are, but still, it's like, as soon as you solo, man, everything starts to happen really fast. And what you don't want during that point of acceleration is to now simultaneously be trying to manage the kind of holy crap, I'm flying a plane by myself now. Like I just went to the airport and nobody told me to leave, and that I can't do that. They said, yes, go get in that plane by yourself and do your thing. That feels real heavy. And to be doing that in parallel with the studying, and then there's a weird pressure that now comes with the written test that perhaps wouldn't have been there before, because you're in this kind of heightened state. So I can definitely subscribe to that. And then as far as research schools better, I think everybody, not everybody, I think a lot of people, it's hard to know. It's just hard to know. You don't know what instructors are going to be like. I mean, it's almost like you can do all the research you want, but it's going to be a combination of research, but also just knowing that you have this goes back to sort of the own your training. You do have the ability to just get out. If you don't like what's going on, trust your gut or whatever, and just get to another place if you have to. You don't have to. They are not committed to you, so you should not be committed to them. And I don't mean that as a. I mean, of course, they want you to be successful, but it's like, if you just stopped showing up one day, they're not going to start hunting you down and like, are you okay?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I think that it's hard to research schools when you're on the outside looking in. It's like from this point, it's easy for us to look. We know reputations of schools and we know instructors and people and all that, but it's like, when you're getting started, you don't know anybody. You don't know any of this stuff. And so it is really hard. I'm going to work back through a couple of comments here, but at my school, it was a Part 61, but they're by tradition, they wanted you to have the written done before your solo, which seems like a good time to get it out of the way and not worry about that. Couple of things related to that. EJ Nixon in our comments said they just soloed last Wednesday. So congrats on that.
Congratulations.
It's like the first time in the flying where you're like, oh, okay, this is cool. I get this. My CFI texted me today and said, hey, it was 2 years ago today that I soloed. And I was like, wow, I didn't know that. That was good to get that reminder of that. So,
yeah. So, and EJ Hardy, I imagine the smile is probably still plastered on your face. And I think that's great. And to Brian's comment, you're in a little bit more control of your path to your check ride because you got to do solo cross country, you got to do the long cross country. It's really the only limiting factor at this point is weather. And to really put an exclamation point on what Brian was saying, you got to research schools. You got to get prepared for the written. And to Cheryl's point, I agree. I did mine a little earlier, and I'm glad that I did. As far as researching schools, there's so many great online schools. Everybody will tell you this is the best, and it probably is. It probably was for them. I used Flight Insight for a commercial, and I thought it was fantastic. So I wouldn't get too caught up in it. They're all providing great services, and you just have to kind of go with what your gut tells you. I would say my regret, I'm not going to name very many, but it was really, I felt like I was rushing through, and I don't think I enjoyed the process as much. I did it on my instrument. I don't want to say I took my time with it, but I did stop and smell the roses. Is about the only way I know how to put it. I was in the moment, and I was also enjoying the moment, where when I was doing my private, I would say maybe except for my first cross-country solo and my first time solo, I was pretty much in the moment, but I should have taken a breath and really soaked it in. I think that's probably my number one regret.
I like that. I don't see you as a person that would have rushed through anything, so it's kind of funny to think about, Ben.
I'm not saying that I rushed through it. I just was, okay, I've done this task. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, I'm done with this task. Let's move on to the next one. It wasn't that I rushed it. It was just that I wanted to get through it. And I should have not pushed so hard.
Yeah, I think that for me, and I wouldn't necessarily classify it as a regret or a regret, either one. Sounds a little harsh, but if I could do it different, and I think that's kind of how we originally framed the episode, was sort of, things we do different. If I would have done anything different, you guys already know the answer to this. I would have done it all tail wheel from the get-go. That is my number one, not really regret, but if I wish that I did it in tail wheel from the beginning, because it's just such an incredibly the relief that occurs through the process of learning that it really pronounces and brings to the fore exactly what you're not doing right. In a way that I think the planes that you train in are a little bit kind of so forgiving that it sort of deadens you to the subtleties of rudder use or some of these other things. You can kind of get by. I mean, I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube where people are training, and I'm talking about like with pretty major YouTuber instructor people with students flying, and I'm looking at it now like their longitudinal alignment is so off on every landing, and the instructor's not really getting on them about it. Where if you were in a tail wheel, and they don't have to, right? Because it's a 172 or whatever is pretty forgiving. You're like, don't put that much on the student. I get it. But in a tail wheel, you better do that. So anyway, that's my probably number one thing. And the only other thing I would say is just I was way too hard on myself.
Yeah.
And not forgiving to myself about what I was going through. I had put so many demands and pressures on myself. And that's what and I think that kind of folds into what you're talking about, Ben, enjoy the process.
Right.
Yeah, that's good. The one thing I was afraid that Brian was going to say, but the one thing that I wish I would have done was used a syllabus. And I felt a little bit unstructured. And if I knew a little more about what was going on, it would have helped my brain. I'm not saying it helps everyone. That's what my brain needed.
Right.
So, yeah.
I do like, I'm sorry, was that it?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I love, I believe this may be a new YouTube.
This is our friend Wendy. Yes.
Oh, I'm so happy to see Wendy on here. EJ, what was the other one? I got the wrong one up there. There it is. My motto was, if I didn't cry, die, or crap my pants, it was a good day on those early solo flights. And she's right. She's absolutely right. If, I kind of felt that way and just wanted to move on to the next one. The plane's not bent and I can use it again.
Awesome.
One more person in our chat that we need to give a huge shout out to, our friend Colin C. out there on the West Coast. Just had his private pilot check ride. That guy is the definition of persistence.
Yes.
He had a lot of hurdles to jump and he did it well. And now he is a private pilot.
We had a good debrief and talked through that. And I'm really glad to learn a lot more about him from that. Some of those clips may make it back to the show, but generally the debriefs, we'll pull a clip or two for the show, but they're mostly to listen to live. We also had one about VFR icing recently, and it's a way to learn from others and not have it be published and every detail shared. So
yeah. And by the way, just real quick, if you really are curious about our Patreon and where some of the value really lies in that, other than just saying, hey, you guys are, pitiful, please take this $5 and put it to use. Like Ben, get a new shirt or like whatever it is. Look, the fact that we have people in the Discord hosting debriefs for key experiences, moments, milestones, and then documenting those things to where if you don't even catch it live, you can watch it unlisted on YouTube or wherever it is later on and get these really broad-based conversations about things. It's so valuable. It's incredible, man. I just love what continues to build, because I don't know of another place as a pilot that you can go and have that kind of support and collective understanding. And we're a curious bunch, so it's been pretty cool. Here's Colin saying community, community, community. That has been the number one thing I have learned as a midlife human. That's right. Well,
And
I just can't say enough, Colin, man. You just,
Yep.
you did it. And, it sounds kind of weird to say, like, we're proud of you. Like, we never thought you'd, no, it's not that.
We're shocked.
It's just that everybody has to go through it, man, one way or the other. And you definitely went through it. And I'm happy for everybody, but I'm particularly happy for you. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to this review real quick, and then we'll send off this thing. So, people are welcome to post 5-star reviews on our Apple podcast thingy or whatever it all is. So we have a great review we just wanted to read, and it is a 5-star review because they're the only ones that matter. So this is from Lima Romeo from the Cowboy Bravo. The title of it is, I Have Found Me a Home. He says, borrowing a 1973 quote from Jimmy Buffett, I have found me a home. Brian, Ben, and Ted and their aviation devotees. Oh boy, devotees. Devotees to aviation, not to Ben, Brian, and Ted, right? He says, those are my peeps. This is a community of midlife aviators attempting to juggle life's demands and financial realities with the daily, irresistible calling to break our terrestrial bonds and soar above it all. What a great sentence. I love that.
Yep.
The show is all about aviation in midlife, whether you're just starting in midlife like me or returning to aviation after life getting in the way. The hosts are not CFIs, don't claim to offer instructional advice. However, every episode has nuggets of gold for the midlife aviator. I have limited time allocated for aviation podcasts, and this one is on my short list. I'm very much looking forward to meeting these guys and some of their followers at the Midlife Pilot Podcast Nashville fly-in. Followers, I mean, that's also a little, but we've been watching a lot of cult documentaries lately, so it just has me a little reticent about that as a term. But I know
acolytes.
Yeah.
Have you got a subliminal message intertwined into the feed here?
Yeah, and I haven't really noticed it until I was just talking about that while I was looking at you guys. But I realized that Ted, you kind of have like a little bit of a Koresh kind of vibe, right? Like, I don't.
Well, I just shaved. I usually get the Unabomber. So,
All right. Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah.
You're a shapeshifter as far as suspect characters.
Yeah. Can't decide which cult leader I am. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, thanks so much for that review.
Yes, thank
really
you,
means a lot.
Romeo. We have one more surprise for the afternoon or for the evening. I believe we have a Bag of Words segment to air tonight.
Yeah. So
you want to set it up?
I made sure not to tell my host about this, and we're going to play this without much context.
503 Tango, your radar contact 3 miles west of the Palmdale Vortex.
This is Jack at 6,500, 503 Tango.
Yeah. Bag of words.
Yeah.
Look on your face.
Oh man. When I was, as I was reviewing this footage, I saw a lot of it, but I was worried about fitting in really busy radio space. And so I would try to speak much faster, and that works against me because I end up taking up more airtime because I mess up and I'm not understood. So yeah, when you can't even say your own tail number, that's Bag of Words.
My favorite thing too is that you're flying with our friend Aero Grizzly and fellow patron as well, and the first thing that comes out of his mouth is Bag of Words, and so it must have been like insult to injury for you because you're like wow, we created this segment that now I'm an embodiment of, and this listener and patron and friend is now just. We know, but and
exactly.
Shout out to the OG Bag of Words creator, Josh MC. But so Bag of Words TM. But man, that's that happens, and I definitely it comes down to like the slow is fast.
Use the website. Yes. Go to midlifepilotpodcast.com and use the audio feedback, or just email us a clip of your Bag of Words. and I will personally guarantee some type of reward from the merch store or from wherever. I've got a supply of things in here. We will gladly pay you for your embarrassing moments. So, and we poke fun at ourselves. It's all in good fun. So, I think that's about it, guys. Anything else we needed to cover?
No, I just want to remind people we got 6 rooms left for the Midlife Pilot Podcast fly-in hotel. So get on that because they will not last. And also around the fly-in, I know that a lot of people that are coming are people that are YouTube creators, or at least, people that make videos, whether they publish them or not. And one of the coolest things that we did before that we're doing again, and I have checked in with folks, but we are going to have several videographers on the whole scene for this whole event. And what's going to happen is they're going to aggregate all of that material and then centrally we're going to host it so that creators can go and look through folders and various organized levels of content from various aspects of the event. We're going to be doing interviews. We're going to be doing all kinds of fun stuff. And everybody's going to be able to come away and tell their own story, or at least have a memory to take with them. And I just think that's one of the, I don't know of any other events that do that. And so I just wanted to say that that's another reason to come, and except for unless you're an introvert like Ted and it's like, yeah, there's going to be cameras. Oh, that's great. These are, it won't be ridiculous and all that, but
it was so great last time. Yeah.
Yeah. And all the footage that I will make or Ted makes or anybody else makes, everything gets centralized into one place. And so and also you'll get to see what happened when these guys went to that place and you went with these people to another. So it's just a really neat way to remember the event. So
it's different perspectives from people. And that's what I enjoyed the most about it. So looking at everybody's different videos. So
yeah.
Very good. Well, that should wrap it up for this episode 68. Thank you to the chat room. We appreciate all the support and all the love and all the feedback. Signing off, episode 68 of the Midlife Pilot Podcast. Good night, everybody.